Alright, I oftentimes get a lot of comments about my revolver, about how clean it is. Especially the cylinder face and a lot of these parts here that get pretty gunked up. This revolver has probably only about 50 rounds through it since I last cleaned it. And you see it's got a little bit of grit here and there. And people always say, wow, your revolver looks great, how do you get that so clean? So I'm going to show you. And before I start this process here, I'm just going to warn you, this is not a very simple and quick process. You can kind of speed it up and do it quicker if you like, but I like to take my time and do it well. So what I have on the table is everything that I use. Simply patches, a toothbrush, old school hoppy solvent, a little bit of Hoppy's oil, some chrome polish, and one of these jag things and a brush. I like to have two different pistol things so I don't have to switch out the tips. I like it that way. So I'll show you what I do here. The first thing I do after making sure the gun is unloaded is I take the cylinder off. This is as far as I'll strip it down. I don't need to do anything more than take the cylinder off. I don't feel a need to take off the grips or the side plate or anything like that. Just the cylinder. So with my hollow ground screwdriver bit here, I'm going to take the cylinder off. That's step one. Now put that screw somewhere where I'm not going to lose it. Now we'll just take this apart. Now at this point, I will clean it for function. This isn't too bad, but to clean it for function, that just means I will put my solvent and my scrub brush through each cylinder chamber and through the muzzle of the revolver just to clean it out. What I like to do is use a patch for my solvents, because I don't like to put my brush back in the solvent container over and over again. I feel like that's not really the best way to do it. You got a lot of loose solvent going all over, and it's kind of messy. What I like to do is I like to take a few patches to catch the excess, because when you push it through, sometimes it starts to drip down, and it prevents it from going on my table here, and it also puts it on a rag so I can use a little bit more of what I have without wasting any. So basically all I'm going to do here, and this is very quick and simple, I don't worry too much about this. I'll just put solvent in each of those chambers, and then I'll put it right down the bore. And there's enough on there to get it pretty wet. So it's starting to get pretty dirty. Now I will put my brush in here very carefully, not to scratch the muzzle crown. Once I'm in, I'll just move it back and forth without bringing this out to have a chance of this catching the muzzle crown. So when I pull it towards the very end of the muzzle, I'm very careful. But while I'm inside the bore here, I don't really worry about it. I just scrub it pretty well. And I don't have to worry too much about this. It's only been 50 rounds or so. And I like to go from the front as well. I know some people go from the back. You know, when you think about it, it really doesn't make any difference. You still get the same effect. You're scrubbing it out, and you're getting a tighter fit on the front of the chamber. And this really isn't so dirty that I have to like excessively do this, but alright, after I've scrubbed it, I'll push it through, and you'll see this will get like extraordinarily black. It gets all that grit out. Now, well, this is still wet, even though it's dirty. I like to use it on the rest of the gun here. Get a lot of this burn stuff off. Not burn, but you know, powder fouling. And around the forcing cone, you can actually get quite a bit off with just the solvent. The main thing of the solvent here is you want to get off that burnt powder and whatnot. But you're limited to how much you can get off. Like it's not taking a lot off. And I always also like to put my finger in the muzzle crown here. And just do this with my thumbnail, or my fingernail, with the solvent rag. And it gets most of that off right there. And I'm going to finish up this really quick, simple cleaning. I'm just going to run a few more patches through here. Through the chambers and through the bore. And I'm not going to sit here and get too obsessively clean here because I don't want to waste too much time showing you guys how I do this. But yeah, basically like that. And now just take a dry patch here, and we'll just wipe everything down, and that'll give us a nice basic start to the cleaning process. Before we go on to removing all the burnt junk on there. I'll just dry it all off. Anywhere there's solvent, I'll dry it off. I like to come back here like this and kind of do this type of thing. Anywhere in the frame where we had solvent and whatnot, we'll get that all cleaned off. Alright, now basically got the gun clean. It's pretty darn clean. But we got all these burn marks on the cylinder face and on the frame of the gun. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull out the chrome polish. There's a lot of different kinds of chrome polish. Some works better than others. This turtle wax kind doesn't work particularly well, but it works enough that, you know, I can do an okay job. So basically what I'm going to do here is put a little bit on here. I don't want to put so much on it that it's going to be dripping down inside the frame here between the cylinder and the extraction rod. I don't want it like that. You'll get a little bit going into the chambers, and we'll just wipe that out later. But what I like to do is take a toothbrush here, get a little bit more on it, dab off the excess, and we'll just do this. We'll scrub it. And be fair warned, this will take a little bit of time to get the cylinder face clean. With this process, you're probably going to take close to 10 minutes. I'll look at the clock and I'll tell you how long it is. I'll speed it up until I'm done, and then when I'm done I'll show you. But basically I'm going to put a little bit of elbow grease in here. And with the elbow grease in it, you can kind of see that it's starting to come off. It's just starting to. So what we got to do is just keep doing this. I'm about a minute into it, and we're making some progress here. Alright, I'm going to switch on to another rag here. Just put a little bit more on there, because that one's getting kind of dirty. And the more you do this, the easier it comes off the next time, because you're really polishing this down in the least abrasive way possible. I've seen people do this with like a steel wool, and that's fine, but I've noticed that there's a lot of swirly marks on the Revolver. I don't like that look. Also on the sides here you get these little burn marks sometimes. I don't see them very much here, but this will take it right off just the same as anything else. I'll just use this all over on the steel. It really isn't as hard as it looks. I mean, it's just a little bit of brushing here. And this is totally safe. I mean, I'm not putting any wires or anything on here. Just a little old nylon brush here. Okay, how far am I into? About another 3 minutes since I started. Here's what I got. It's getting there. Basically, you just put a little more elbow grease on it, and sit down and do this. And one thing you can do is just kind of sit back and watch television or something while you clean specific parts here. It's like 99% there. It's very, very, very clean. Doesn't take a whole lot. So we're almost 4 minutes into this polishing process here. Yeah, that's pretty good. I could obsessively sit here and get every last piece off, but I would say for demonstration purposes, this is all I need to really show you. And you know, there's a little bit of excess of that stuff in here, so I'll take this last dry patch I had on this rod and just push this out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same process on the forcing cone. And there's a few little tricks I use, but I make sure we don't have excessive amounts. And just come right around here, and this will take this stuff off. See this burn mark up here, or burn stuff? I'm going to take this polish and just rub it on like this. It doesn't really take a lot for this type of situation. And what I like to do is take a rag, fold it in half with the polish on it, but make sure not to have too much polish, and then I'll put it behind here between the top strap and the top of the forcing cone. Just do this. And do it multiple times if I have to. And then we're just going to go on the side here, on the side of the forcing cone. You can see it's taking it off the side of the forcing cone. And all around the frame on the forcing cone. Or near the forcing cone, I should say. And the same thing I did with that cylinder face. I'll take this toothbrush and let's look at these bristles in between the top strap and the top of the forcing cone and the bottom of the forcing cone. And this will actually do a pretty good job at getting that stuff off. Now I come back here even with the toothbrush. As long as there's not a lot of excessive amounts of the polish on it, that's fine. If it's dripping, gooping with polish, you don't want to come back here in your hand area and all that back there. You want to make sure there's hardly any on it if you're going to do that. But for the most part, we can just do this. And we're not going to get swirl marks or anything on it because it's just nylon. Really, we're getting close. I mean, there's some marks here that I can take off, but so far so good. One thing that I don't do is I don't take the polish and rub the sides of my revolver because I like the brushed finish on these Smith & Wessons. It just makes it kind of hide the scratches you might get over the years. And if you go too smooth and shiny on the sides, then you're not going to hide those scratches. But on the cylinder face, I like it nice and smooth because it takes off, well, it doesn't stick as bad. The newly acquired grit and stuff does not stick as bad when you have a smoother and smoother metal like that. So the more you do this, the easier and easier it will be over the years if you keep it polished with the polish, because you're essentially sanding it down, but very, very small increments. And there's a couple little marks here, but we're like almost done. Up between the forcing cone and the back strap, it is a little bit dark. I could get the rest of that off if I sat here and I did that for another 10 minutes or so, but I don't see any need to really do that. You get the drift of how this stuff works. So basically, after I do all of that, I'm going to take a brand new dry patch, and I'm just going to put a little oil on here. I'll do kind of the same thing I did with the chrome polish. I don't want it dripping and gooping around. So just like that, and then we're going to push it through the bore carefully, the way I did with the other process here. I'm just going to do this to wash off anything. And then I'm going to put it through the chambers. right off here and go around and wipe any area like this. I'm going to push the extractor down and clean this area. Another thing you can do, toothbrush back here, right around the star here, and that will get that grit out. And then I take a dry patch and I'll actually wipe that off with the dry patch, and we're pulling it with the bristles straight down off of that. And at that point you can wipe it down, and now I got a little bit of grit in here now because I should have done that first, but I'll take this oily patch and I'll put it back through, get that grit out of there from bristling it. It looks like the front of my muzzle crown could use a little bit extra something there. It's a little dirty. With this oily rag, I'll just come in here and, you know, I can use the polish on this part too, and it works pretty well. Don't really see any need to at this point. Now at this point, I'm gonna put it back together before I dry out the bore. But you know, I like to put one little drop on this and rub it around, and that'll just provide enough oil in there. And kind of the same thing on here. One little tiny drop if I can get it out. And we'll just rub it around real quick and take the cylinder and we'll put it back in the frame. I always have problems with this part. It's just the simplest part, and it's like, ugh. Alright, I'm going to take that screw. Try not to lose it. I always finger tighten it before I put that screwdriver head on there, make sure it's lined up straight. And I put it in very, very slowly, make sure the sides of that screwdriver don't slip off. And I'll just put a little bit of force on it to tighten it. Not too excessive. Get another one here, I'll check it. It's fine. While I'm out here, I'll check the sight screw. This notoriously is known for coming loose. That's fine. Alright, one last thing to do. This has a little bit of solvent on it. And get a nice dry patch. I'll take a dry patch. And I'll send that dry patch through the bore. A little bit of grit on there. I could have scrubbed it better than what I did because it's a little bit dark, but you know, this is just demonstration purposes. My little trick I like to do is, you know, it fits in loose, and once it comes out the back, I'll let it double up as I pull it through, and you get a nice tight pull through. And the same thing up here through the bore. So that's basically how you get it fairly clean stainless steel revolver. I'll take one more dry patch here and I'll wipe down the frame. There's a little bit of solvent on this rubber grip, and I'll get a dry sock or something before I put it away. I'll wipe it down, but basically that's what I do. It seems to do fairly well, makes your revolver look pretty good, so thought I'd show that. I know a lot of people wondered. So as always, thanks for watching.